大家好，我是 Heather 老师，欢迎大家呢参加我们今年夏天的暑期面试 Bootcamp 暑期面试强化班。今天呢，我来给大家介绍一下，我们这是第一节课，所以呢，我想给大家来讲一讲我们今天的要做的事情。第一呢，我们来给大家介绍一下我们的今天的嘉宾 Larry 老师。一会儿他会自我介绍，之后呢，我会讲讲在美国面试的一些背景知识，包括面试问题的分类、面试的形式。我们这个暑假的强化班重点要讲的是行为面试，为什么它重要？那么我们主要攻的问题都是行为面试题。那么今天呢是我们第一节课，所以我们会讲的是自我介绍这一块的问题。我们会要看的问题是 Tell me about yourself. How would you describe yourself in your own words? And 第三个问题是 How do you add value to my company or to my team? 好，那么without further ado, Larry, you're online. Larry's a good friend of mine and also ChampAmerica's, and he's been involved in helping ChampAmerica since I want to say 2015. Big support of us, and a lot of our students, you've also met Larry. So Larry, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, absolutely. I've had a various career on Wall Street for about the last 14 years. I worked in a strategy and chief of staff capacity at Citigroup. I was a senior consultant at Ernst & Young. I was a financial advisor at Merrill Lynch, and most recently I was an account executive at First Republic Bank.
And for those of you who are not familiar, and I'm sure everyone knows EY, Citi, and Merrill, but First Republic is actually one of the top-rated private banks in the U.S. and in the world. Right?
Yep, absolutely true.
Just for those who didn't have the background. Okay. So we will head into today's lecture interview. And I'm going to switch to Chinese and I'm going to jump back and forth. So Larry, I'm sure you understand Chinese as well. So
yeah, either way works.
Okay, great. 好，我们大家今天在线上的，我想跟大家重申一下我们的原则。我们的原则就是不能打无准备之仗。为什么这么说？因为秋招是一个非常非常短暂的时间。我在幻灯上说，转瞬即来，转瞬就结束。9月份的时候，大家回来开学，在选课，那个时候课业会非常繁重。那么那个时候其实也是秋招如火如荼在进行的时候。等到10月份的时候，基本上大家简历都收完了，各个公司的简历都收完了 ，corporate presentation 也都做完了。10月底面试，11月初基本上就 wrap up。所以等到你那时候适应了学业，再返回头来说，哎，我看看。recruiting， 那么最大的这一块的 recruiting 的工作，其实在9、10月份的时候就都已经结束了。那么，所以不要妄想说到时候9月份、10月份我还能够继续去准备面试，然后再去写这些面试的文稿，不太可能。为什么？因为我们自己有很多的自身的劣势，我们有语言基础。我们不是英语母语的 speaker， 所以这样子的话呢，除了我看同学们准备的文稿，我经常会去读它啊，那么这上面经常不仅有这个 content 的问题，而且有时候大家的语言啊、用词、选择、语法都会有问题，所以呢，语言是我们的第一个hurdle。那么第二呢，我们缺乏职场资源，由此引来的就是我们还要除了在学校参加这些校招之外，我们还需要去 network。那么需要去 network 的时候，其实也是面试的一个另外一个变相，因为你要去了解别人，你要去跟别人去 coffee hour 或 office chat， 你总是还要介绍自己，总是还要告诉别人你是学什么专业的，你为什么想要这个工作。所以职场资源你还要自己去开拓的。第三呢，就是缺乏经验。我们在学校里，不管你功课有多好，把自己这些学业的知识放到实际业务当中来，如果你缺乏一定的经验，那么表述起来也会有一定的困难。所以这些 种种的劣势都是一个怎么说呢？都是一个警示啊，就是说我们一定要提前在开学以前，在秋招开始以前去准备自己的面试。那么自信呢，我总是跟大家说，来自于充分的准备和知己知彼。你知道自己的优势和劣势，你有了自己面试的提纲和回答方案，那么你又知道工作要些什么，这样的话，你才能够有很好的面试的效果。另外一个呢 ，practice makes it perfect。我们从现在开始，每周花2-3个小时整理文案，做职位分析。那么你如果从现在开始下手做准备，等你到秋招开始的时候，8月初的时候，你去看一看，你会发现自己的能力会提高很多。顺便讲一下，就是所有我们自己的学生，从7月份开始，你们每周会收到申请的职位。课程结束之后，我们会把这些很多的文稿和回答的样本发给你们。那这样以后也会助于你们自己进一步去 fine tune 自己的文稿。那这样呢，我的希望是，我自己还有我们这些客座的老师，像 Larry 这样，每周能够给你提供一些这些回答问题的方案。那么秋招的时候呢，你可以100%的投入，没有压力。好，现在来说一下，在美国面试有哪些怎么样的是一个大的分类。那么通常有2-3个部分。第一个部分呢是行为面试，就是我们要重点去攻克的就是 behavior interview。第二块呢是技术面试 technical interview， 往往呢这些都是就是你所学的专业知识。那么第3块呢是案例应用 case interview。那么这个 case interview 呢，通常呢在 consulting 啊这样的公司可能会更多一些。那么你比如说去其他的行业呢，不是说非常常见。那么面试呢，通常是1到2轮，那么现在很普遍，大家可能也都经历过，会有电话或者是 online 的这个店面预选，就是 phone screening， 或者是给你一个 recorded video screening。那么这也是让HR 可以很好的在第1轮了解到谁比较适合，去从就是大印象上会选一些更好的 candidate 做下一步的 interview， 因为现在申请工作的人还都是很多的。那么校招有的时候会有一些在线测试，那么这里面可能有性格测试或者有智力测试，在校招这是也很常见的。真正到面试的时候，会是技术和行为面试的组合。像刚才我们说过，咨询公司 consulting company 有的时候会做案例分析。那么对大多数学生来说呢，我们的面试当中，行为面试会占更大的比例。为什么是这样啊？就是说，我们先说技术面试吧。就是技术面试呢，和你相关的知识，尤其是自己的专业，特别是写在简历上的这些专业和技能，绝对不要含糊。你比如说，我们学会计的同学，学 accounting 的，我听到很多很多次，你去做 interview 的时候，面试官会问你关于 debits 和 credits 的问题，那这些东西就不能错，错了以后让人就感觉这个专业就白学了啊，就对你的技能就没有信心。那么学计算机的同学可能会有基础的编程，或者是 test 你 SQL 啊、Python 这些都可能有。如果你是学 banking 或者是想去面试私募啊这样的同学，像 DCF model 你就一定要知道是怎么做。即便你没有学过，你可以大概要知道有哪些步骤，有哪些 assumption，right？ 那么很多我还听说过有专门去测试你 Excel 的，如果 Excel 里我想做什么，我应该用哪个 function，right？ 这都是有的。那么技术面试其实看重的是思考过程，那么不要怕没有最终的答案，你可以一步一步去解释你自己的思路。还有很重要的一个地方就是不要不懂装懂，如果有不明白或者不清楚的地方呢，要大胆的提问，这样你才能把一个很宽泛的问题把它细化。你比如说最近我们同学就是有一个 information system management 的一个工作的 interview， 问题是 if you're the information system manager today for a new company，how would you decide on the technology infrastructure, right？ 那我们同学就很快就 jump in 就说cloud-based computing， 那么当然是 cloud-based computing， 但是正确的问题应该是什么？先问一问 what industry does your company operate in, right? So if it's healthcare, right, versus manufacturing, right? 对 information system 的 requirement they're not going to be the same. If you're in healthcare, you have to think about those privacy rules. If you are in, for example, manufacturing, you probably have to think about enterprise resources management, right? 所以第一个问题就是 seek clarification, right? What exactly, is the sort of big picture? What are some of the factors, the constraining factors that I have to keep in mind in order to decide what's the right information system for it? OK， 那么下面还有一点呢，就是说行业知识，很多雇主会考察你对市场和行业的了解。如果是这样的话呢，大家需要通过这个假期积累一些行业知识。你比如说，学商科或者学金融的同学，如果别人问你 Where's Dow trading at? Where's S&P? Right? Where's crude oil? 这些重要的指数你应该知道。另外，最近还有一个我们同学去面试 software development， 那么问题是 What software products or applications have you used that has completely changed your life? Right? 这样的问题就是这是你一个对行业兴趣的这样一个问题，所以你自己一定要提前有一些准备。好的 ，OK， 那么现在我们转回头来说一说行为面试。OK， 行为面试呢，就是说，除非 I'm sorry, go back。OK， 如果是非常非常技术性的工作，除非你是 PhD 啊，或者是做的非常非常 technical， 一般的面试呢都更重视行为面试。为什么我这么说？一会儿我会请 Larry to jump in. I want to just go over really quickly. 因为我们雇主每天收到的简历有成千上万的简历，那么在学生的级别上呢，从硬技能上讲，大家是没有太大的区别的。有可能你的 GPA 是 3.5， 他的 GPA 是 3.6， 那么只要你差不多过了这个 3.5、3.6 的这个线，你们就真的是没有太大区别，学的东西也差不多。所以这就是为什么 fit 这个问题，就是看你的性格和团队是否匹配，和团队啊和公司的文化是否匹配，这就是非常非常重要了。那么面试呢，给你一个展现个人经历、职业追求的机会，也能够让雇主看到你的综合表达能力。总之来讲呢，是看你顺不顺眼的这么一个过程。So Larry, I'm going to turn this back to you, right? We were talking about behavior interview and why fit is such a big issue. I want to get your thoughts on, you've been an employer and you interviewed numerous candidates, right? How do you decide, right, who's the candidate you hire and how is that behavioral question how important is it for you?
Sure. So behavior is definitely a strong component of what employers are going to look for. Basically, the kind of shorthand in financial services, at least, is we call them airport interviews. And the idea being, if you were stuck in an airport with this person for 12 hours, would you want to be? And that doesn't mean joking around or this or that, but showing that you're an interesting person who has interests outside of the office. Maybe you like to read, maybe you like to go see plays, maybe you like science, whatever. But just being a little conversational and not being so stiff, which is hard to do sometimes, but just being a human being and being very relatable is a big part of the fit interview.
Very cool. And I also want to just touch upon something, right? A lot of students think, when I go into interview, there's the technical aspect and then there's H-1B visa. And it's so important. And that's the most important thing on your interviewer's mind. And I think that can't be further away from the truth, right? As an interviewer, you probably don't even know about this H-1B or not, right?
No.
Your goal is you're looking for the best candidate that you can bring.
100%. We're talking about fit here, but yeah, it's behavioral and it's technical. It may be very much on the candidate's mind, but it's probably not something that the hiring person is really thinking about.
Right.
Because it's kind of in the background because that's an HR issue, and unless you're interviewing for an HR job, that's not what the manager cares about.
Right. And then, so for most companies, right, as long as they like you, right, you fit the need. And H-1B is only part of what the company needs to do to bring you on board. So that could be H-1B visa, that could be more money, could be helping you relocate or put you in an office of choice, right? You might not want to be in the New York office, you might want to go to San Francisco office, but it's part of what employers need to do to get you to join the team.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's just one component for sure.
Yeah. So, and this is where I want to demystify this when we talk about interview, right? Think of how you really leave a good impression, right? Behavior interview, be strong on your technical side, and then everything else will come along if you do a good job, right? Whether it's money or the visa.
Right. No, I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So today, Larry and I will walk you through a couple of very typical questions, right? And we're going to classify them in sort of the buckets. And today is all around introducing yourself, tying your skills to what the employers are looking for, right? And how do you fit in, right? So these buckets. First question is, tell me about yourself. And this question could be asked in many different ways or formats. Similar to that is, walk me through your resume. What in your experience made you apply for this job? And why are you here today? That's a more casual way of asking, right? A little cheeky or cocky way of asking. But I actually have been asked this question, why are you here today? And that's not when I was a student, when I was a professional and interviewing for another job. And the managing director interviewing me that day, and I think he was sort of joking, but also sort of serious about just basically tell me about why I should give you the time of the day to listen to you. So thoughts, Larry?
Yeah, so you're really, oftentimes in an interview, this is how it starts off. You know, why don't you walk me through your background? Why don't you walk me through your resume? Variations on that. And the advice I always give to folks is your resume is your story, right? And so A, you shouldn't be nervous about it because it's your story. And B, you should have it down pat because the way that you should have conducted your CV is such that you want a through point. You want to tell the story of your career, or even if it's the beginning of your career, what you're good at. And you want to be able to anticipate questions that they may ask you and be able to say, well, this bullet point addresses that, or this bullet point addresses that other question that you're talking about. And that's the best way to, tell your story.
Right. So the other thing I tell people is this question is important because their impression is really formed within the first 30 seconds or so of that interview, right? So everything else becomes almost like confirming that impression. If people like you, they're going to keep validating that through questions they gave you. If they didn't like you, it's going to hold true as well. They're going to keep asking things to say, okay, confirmed again. I'm going to ask this, not the right skill set, not the right fit, right? So make sure you deliver a very, very strong answer on this opening question. And usually it's the opening question. I have yet to see, I don't think I've seen many interviews where people jump in right into, give me an example of something without asking about your background, right? Probably not very often.
It's awkward if they do that for everybody, including the interviewer. And also, I would point out that if you do a good job of walking somebody through your resume and experience, you're really setting the stage for the next set of questions. And so if you set that out well, then you're going to be able to answer the next set of questions well.
Right. Totally. So we're going to look at an example, right? And this is a real example from our current student. And believe me, it didn't start out this way. And as you can see, there's still some areas where we can improve. But I think the student has come a long way in terms of from almost no answer to having an answer that really is well organized and well thought out. So I'm going to read this, and after each part, and we're going to comment on it. Okay, Larry? So he said, I am a junior at Fordham University with two majors in statistics and computer science and minoring in economics. With a passion in data analysis, statistical tools, and programming, I have taken a number of courses to deepen my knowledge in these fields. I have developed strong knowledge in Python, SQL, R, MATLAB, and Tableau. My machine learning course also taught me how to utilize various packages in Python to conduct data classification, cluster analysis, regression analysis to build training models. So off the bat, you're a student. I think it's fine to start from education. And he clearly indicated where he studies, what his major, some of the key courses that he's taken. And I like where he listed on some of his core software package skills, software skills like Python, SQL, R, MATLAB, and Tableau. Those are all very desirable skill sets to have, right? And if you look at job descriptions, a lot of them will say at least know one or two of these followings. So I think this is a strong opening in terms of academic background. Dots, additional?
Yeah, I totally agree. The only thing I might add, depending on the background of the person, is they're literally asking you to tell you about yourself, right? And technically, this is super strong. You know, you might add in, you know, at Fordham, I also work in the IT department, or I play, you know, basketball or whatever, something that's outside the realm of the very technical, just to make you a little more relatable. But yeah, I would focus primarily on this, and then maybe somehow add in a sentence or something about your interests, or you know, other jobs you might have had, or something like that.
Yeah, so this is the first page, and we're going to look at his work experience next. But I do agree with you, maybe a little more personal things at the end. So let's look at the middle section of his experience part. So now in the middle part, he talked about his past work experience, and he said, I've also had some practical experiences related to data analysis in my past internships. This past summer, I was at Citibank, New York, where I was responsible for collecting and analyzing online credit card transaction data in order to detect warning signs of fraud. I cleaned, normalized, analyzed data using various tools. I visualized the results and produced a memo on the methodologies and findings. This project contributed to the bank's overall risk management initiatives for the credit card business. So I like that. That's a little more detailed, but I want to give everybody sort of like an example. I like that because this is a very clear description of his work experience, right? And it touched upon his understanding of the industry and the bank. He knows he's working for the credit card division, right? He knows what he's doing is sort of fraud detection using sort of the data analysis. And he knows that this is part of the risk management initiatives. So I think it shows that he's overall understanding of the product and the business. And then it showed specifically how he was able to apply the knowledge and skill to an internship.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the best part of it is, so I liked a lot of the acting words, the collecting, analyzing. And I think the strongest part though is the end, where you say, what I did produced a positive result, and it was an overall benefit to the firm that I was there. Right. I'm not saying it specifically, but it's alluding to it.
Right. So this is, I totally agree. It's like talking about results. Well, you can't really quantify that result, right? So it's not like everything you do will result in 10% of revenue growth, right? And that's going to be difficult. But as long as you know how what you did contributed positively to a company, to a team, I think that's something very worth mentioning in an interview.
For sure.
Okay, so now this is how he ended the introduction. I believe that my background in statistics and computer science, as well as my business knowledge, make me a great candidate for the position, so we'll change that. I'm highly motivated, eager to learn, and I'm always willing to challenge myself. I'm also a team player who can step up to lead. I'd love to talk to you more about this position and my qualifications, and happy to answer any questions that you might have. And I do think you have a very valid point, and we should probably mention outside of work, I'm very interested in sports, or maybe I am, I volunteer, or some other things where people can relate. But what I like this is that he's bringing it all together. So we talk about academics, we talk about work, then he talk about as a person. So some of the personality traits like eager to learn, motivated, wanting to challenge himself. And a lot of people just kind of end like, okay, this is my academic, this is my job experience. That's it. I ends in a very awkward and abrupt way. But he was able to bring it together and say, you know, this is a little bit about me, and I love to talk to you about this position and answer your questions. So you kind of naturally create a dialogue, and you're almost passing the ball back into your interviewer's court. So I think, you know, creating that conversation is almost half the battle, right? Making sure that people are engaged with you, developing that bond. So I like how he's ending this self-introduction.
I think, like, the way I think of it is, say you were writing out a high-level description of like a book you were writing, and you have the introduction, you have the events that happen, and then you have to have a conclusion, because otherwise you can say, hey, this is me. Here are all the great things I did, but if you don't kind of sum it up and conclude it, you're missing the last part of, you know, that table of contents.
Yeah, and you're leaving people to run away with whatever they remembered, right? So they might not remember your great project experience at Citi, or maybe they don't remember your background anymore. So just like you said, yeah.
Or they may take what you presented to them in a different way than you want them to conclude. So if you give them the conclusion, that they won't arrive at the wrong conclusion.
Right. So yeah, so I thought, you know, if anyone wants to sort of have a model or a sample answer, I think this is a pretty good answer, right? In that your academic, your work experience, and sum it up, who you are as a person, and then, you know, cleverly push that back to the recruiter. And I think that's a good sort of template to follow.
Sure.
Yeah. Now, another question that came up is, how would you describe yourself in your own words? And that's also an interesting question, right? Because when people hear this answer, or hear this question, and you kind of just go into, okay, there's a lot of adjective that can describe me. Analytical, creative, collaborative, detail-oriented, organized, you know, there's so many things. How do I choose what's relevant, and how do I present the best case? How many do I talk about, right? Do I talk about 1, 2, 10, right? I can be here all day to talk about how great I am. So I think the cue is always go back to your job description. Think of what a company is looking for. So you work in financial services, and so did I. And if you go interview at Citigroup, right, for a traditional financial reporting role, creativity is probably not something you want to talk about, right? Probably not. And if you say you're very dependable, I think that's fine. But I also thought that's like almost fundamental and basic, right? You don't really, it's nothing that really sets you apart anymore.
I would say also, be prepared to pick the correct, you know, what you believe to be the correct descriptive words, but also have examples in the back of your head about how you're analytical or how you're a team player. Because if somebody says, oh, that's great, you're a team player, we're looking for a team player, can you give me like 2 examples of when you've been a team player? And you just kind of sit there and stare at them? Like, that's not going to end well, right? So be proactive in thinking about what the next step is going to be, because they're asking you this not because that you can't think of 3 adjectives, but because they're now going to ask you about the 3 adjectives you picked.
So, and you hit a point that's really interesting. Most students try to prepare 1 example, but I have interviewed with other people, and it's people sitting along me, right? Sitting with me, interviewing other people. So we interviewed someone, he had a great example. And this person, my counterpart in an interview said, oh, great, give me another example, right? So you just all of a sudden see the candidate's face like, what? That's not supposed to happen. It's like 1 example. And you seem so rehearsed and prepared, and the second one looks so different. And that doesn't really sit well with your interviewer either. So something to Larry's point.
Yeah, and I would also add, your, interviews by nature are stressful, right? So use your resume to help you in situations like that, right? So I always tell people, have 3 to 6 bullet points that you have to bring up in the interview. And this can be one of the examples of that, where, so how would you describe yourself in your own words? Well, I'm very detail oriented. Well, can you give us an example of that? Yeah, right here, bullet point 3, when I worked at Citigroup, I did X, Y, and Z. And so you've now used the bullet point, you've taken a little bit of the stress off of yourself because you already thought of it and you know your resume better than anybody. And it allows you to kind of de-stress and also do a really good job of telling that story.
Right. And also, every bullet point on your resume, right, should be able to speak to at least more than 2 aspects of you, right? The same leadership experience, you most likely can use that to explain conflict management, right? Likely, or persuasion, right? So if your interviewer asks for one example and then says, give me another, just quickly think of another example, and hopefully you prepared where you can use another line on your resume that you prepared, for example, for analytical skills, to talk about how you can critically think about an issue. Have examples, and more than one examples, and make sure everything on your resume is fully utilized. So let's go back to the point that I was making earlier. How would you describe yourself in your own words, right? And your cue should be, go back to that job requirement. What is the job looking for? And pick the ones that are very relevant, that speaks to you, who you are. Now, we took an example, and this is Drexel University direct job posting. That's for a co-op program posted by JP Morgan Chase. Let's look at the skill requirements, right? And we highlighted some of them. Proficient organizational problem-solving skills, verbal communication skills, basic understanding of the firm's products, comfort liaising with business and partners while building and maintaining relationships, ability to critically challenge with the goals of identifying control issues, identify business drivers, requirement, and influence others, quickly understand the working of a complex processing system, right? So translate that. And that's the skill set on the right-hand side of the page, right? What you should be talking about in terms of yourself should be coming from this box. And these are the things you need to bake into your own answer. Organizational skills, problem solving, knowledge of the market, products, players, critical thinking, business acumen, communication, right? That can be influence, persuasion, teamwork, conflict management, critical think. Oh, I'm sorry, I have a duplicate here. And then being a quick learner, right? So let's see how we prepared an example, right? So utilizing the student whose introduction we just talked about, and we had him prepare an answer to answer, how would you describe yourself in your own words? So his answer was, I would describe myself as a quick learner, excellent team player, and someone with good business acumen. So he hit 3 out of probably 10 of those requirements. And Larry, would you say like 3 or 4 is more than sufficient?
Yeah, I would have 3, thinking that you're going to ask 1 or 2 and have a 3rd in your back pocket in case you have a particularly hard interviewer. But I think 3 is probably max.
Yeah, and then you know, if you do 3, you don't have to sort of give examples of every one of them, right? In this case, we prepared 2, and one of them you kind of can just, take it easy and stress on 2 things. So let's take a look at his answer. During my internship at Citigroup this past summer, I had to pick up quite a bit of new knowledge related to the financial markets, products, Citigroup systems. I did it by reading related information on my own time, learning on the job, and talking to my associates and manager to learn from their experiences, which allowed me to get up to speed on my project very quickly. All right, so that's an example that proved that you're a very quick learner.
Sure.
Secondly, I enjoy working in teams. I'm both a supportive team member and also I can step up to lead. I pride myself for being a good listener and a good communicator. So here is more of a general statement. We didn't add an example because we know there's going to be another example coming. Last but not least, I have good business acumen. Going back to my experience at Citi, it was important for me as the data person to understand what the business clients were looking for. Otherwise, my data analysis would not be meaningful. So my ability to listen and understand complex concepts allowed me to get the big picture of the project and the goal we were trying to achieve. With a proper understanding of the goals and deliverables, I was very effective in building the data analytics tool. Right? So here he talked about 3 things and was using solid examples to support both of those statements. And the other one, we kind of just did a more of a general statement type.
Right.
Comments, thoughts from you, Larry?
I think it's very good. My only thing of caution is everybody has, so words like quick, excellent, descriptive things like that. People have different views of what that is. Like I had a friend of mine who is a little bit of a tough interviewer, and he said to the person, it says here on your resume that you're proficient in Excel. Where would you put yourself on a scale of 1 to 10? And he said, I think I'm like a 7 or an 8. And so my friend said, okay, how would you make a pivot table? And they had no clue. What would the shortcuts be to add a filter to a row? I have no idea. That's not a 7 or an 8, right? Right. It doesn't mean you couldn't do the job, but it does mean that you don't understand where you find yourself, like on the correct spectrum. And so I think this is a great answer. I just would be very careful with descriptive words because some people will then start to explore that.
Right. Okay. So maybe we can qualify that or be more specific. So get up to speed on my project within the first 2 weeks, for example. That might be better.
Yeah. It's kind of like when you do goal setting for the year at a job, right? They always say it should be quantifiable, right? So do a great job building team activities. That doesn't mean anything. Like what's a great job, right? But create 5 business activities for my group within the next 12 months. You can actually go back 12 months and see how many things you did. And if it's 5, then you did it. And if it's not 5, then you didn't. So I think that's true here in an interview setting too.
Correct. So yeah, now that these are great feedback, and I'm glad we're using real people's answer, right? So because what one person sees it, the other person might have a totally different feel. So guys, again, this is sort of the challenge in an interview, but also the beauty, right? You want to make sure you're connecting with that human being, whoever is interviewing you. Make sure you're listening, you're tuning in the interview, not just you talking, giving answers, but really creating a dialogue and sort of fine-tune your interview skills. Okay, so now the fun part comes. There's a question, how do you add value to my company or team or a team, right? So this is, again, very similar to the first 2 questions, probably more so to the second question. How would you describe yourself, right? So the company is asking, what are some of the top sort of skills or personality traits that really differentiates you? But I think there's another element is that you need to really link these things to the company and or job that you're interviewing for, right? So I think it boils down to a fit question again. So let me give you an example using the same person, right? Same exact answer from earlier. We kind of tweak the answer to fit into this question, right? Whether describe yourself in your own words or your strengths, and how do you add value to my company? So the answer we came up was, I consider myself a good candidate for the JP Morgan co-op position for the firm-wide accounting and reporting group because of several reasons. First, my academic background in programming and data, as well as my internship at Citigroup, to apply these skills have provided me with a solid foundation to pursue a career in the financial services industry. In order to apply my technical knowledge to the business problems, I had to pick up quite a bit of new knowledge about the financial markets, products, and Citigroup systems. I did it by reading related information on my own time, learning on the job, talking to my associates and manager to learn from their experiences. This allowed me to get up to speed on the project quickly. So you can almost hear the exact same answer from before, but now he's talking about how his experience at Citi would set the foundation for him to pursue a career at JP Morgan. So now, secondly, I enjoy working in teams. I'm both a supportive team member, but I can also step up to lead. I pride myself for being a good listener, a good communicator. I know teamwork at JP Morgan is important, and I also know that teams here could be cross-regional and cross-functional. The communication and listening skills will allow me to work effectively in this team environment. So again, putting his communication and teamwork skills in the JP Morgan sort of context. Now, going back to the next page to finish up. Last but not least, I have good business acumen. Going back to my experience at Citi, it was important for me as the data person to understand what the business clients were looking for. Otherwise, my data analysis would not be meaningful. With proper understanding of goals and deliverables, I was very effective in building the data analytical tool. So in conclusion, I believe that my background and skills will allow me to thrive in the JP Morgan environment. Not only will I provide excellent service to my internal and external clients, but the firm will also provide me with the challenges to continue to grow and develop. Okay? So I think it's very much taking those skill sets or strengths that we talked about earlier and putting them into a JP Morgan, under the JP Morgan umbrella, and making sure that everything that he's talking about shows that he's a good fit for the company.
I would agree with all that. I have a couple of thoughts. One is, I don't think, so I was given this advice when I was early on in my career. At the time I didn't believe it, and now I 1000% believe it. And it is, they're not just interviewing you, you're interviewing them. You're trying to see if it's a good fit. And I know I was guilty of this when I was looking for my first job. I just wanted any job. And because it's hard. But you know, one of these things, like, how can you add value to my company and team? You know, it's not a terrible idea to maybe come back and say, like, well, what are some of the characteristics that you're looking for this team? And then again, knowing what bullet points you want to highlight on your resume, point to, like, when they say we're looking for somebody who's really good at data analytics. Oh, well, I had an internship doing that. Just wanted to point that out in case you missed that on my resume. And the other thing, hopefully this goes without saying, but these are all excellent answers and a great, very well thought out way to explain why you're a good fit for the company and the team. But don't do this exactly. Like, don't write this out for yourself and then memorize it, because you're gonna miss out on the fit part of the interview, because you're gonna seem very robotic. So you need to know kind of high level bullet points of what you are going to express, but not word for word what you're going to express.
Right. Yeah. So writing it has benefit in that if your English is not your native language, or you just, like the two questions we talked about earlier, how do you add value versus how do you describe yourself, right? It's really the same, along the same line, but there's subtle differences.
Sure.
You want to kind of have like a roadmap to say, this is how I would answer it, right? But totally agree. If you just recite like word by word, you're going to look like a robot, and you might just like give them an answer that's like too rehearsed, and that's not really, because it's very likely they come up with another variation of asking this question, right? So listen to the subtle differences and use these preparation as a roadmap to help you, rather than the exact script that you're going to talk about.
I would even go so far as to say, I would rather get 85% of the thoughts here explained in a more conversational way than to get 100% word for word correct,
right.
because the impression is going to be so bad.
Right. Yeah. So have a script, but practice. Make it conversational. Make it like very natural. Right. Yeah. Okay. Very cool. So I think we're going to do a quick summary of what we talk about today. Basically, as I talked about earlier, even though this is in Chinese, Larry, so what I was really stressing is you really have a very, very small window for fall recruiting, right? If you think you can think about all this when September starts, right? After Labor Day, I'm going to sign up for classes, everything's happening. I'm going to apply for positions. I'm going to prepare for my interview. Especially as an international student, I would say you're probably dreaming, because they're just such a heavy lift that you need to get this done now and get ready. So by fall, just if you get a call or you go to corporate, you should be ready to go and not having to think about these things at that point. So, and this is the reason why we're doing this every week, is that you spent 2 hours to 3 hours every week from now. Today's June 13th, and by the time you get to beginning of August, you're going to get all these out of the way, right? And then another thing we talk about is interview questions, right? Along the same theme, there's different variations of the question. There's subtle differences, but a lot of that is going to be very similar. So have your core answer and sort of listen to what the interviewer is asking, and then just tweak your answer accordingly. What I would also encourage everybody to do after today is go find a real job out there that you truly like and then you want to apply for, right? Don't worry about the sponsorship issue. Don't worry about, some of the things you can't control, but use that job to come up with your sample answer, right? Because when you have those in front of you, it's going to be more natural than just, if I ask you now, tell me to describe yourself in 3 words, and you're going to be like, okay, I'm just going to randomly choose 3. But if you see a real job, talk to that job and use that as a practice. And then last but not least, use your individual classes as an opportunity, right, to really fine tune your answers with us. And if you want to talk to Larry, let us know, and we'll make sure we'll catch Larry during his busy schedule.
I would also add, while interviewing, especially early on, is a little bit of a formal context. The more you I don't know, I don't really think of it as interviews as much as I think of it as a conversation, right? Specifically about you. So, you're about to go into the summer. There's going to be a lot of networking stuff. It's a great opportunity. Maybe you get a job because you're doing this networking and you meet somebody who has an opening for whatever. But also, when you go to a networking event or any kind of event, what are you talking about? You're talking about you, you're talking about them, right? So it gives you like practice with no risk. So while you definitely, Heather's 100% right that you should be thinking about specifically preparing for interviews for the fall, you should also use social interactions with your classmates, with a networking group, whatever, to use this in real life. You don't want the first time for you to be doing this to be on an actual interview that you really want. So practice with people, and not just the, what are 3 words that define you, but, talk. The more you talk to people, the more social you are, the better you're going to do in the interview ultimately.
Totally. Larry, you had more than one job, right?
Yes.
So how many of those jobs did you get through applying online, and how many of those jobs did you get through networking?
So I've worked at 4 different firms, and one I got through a headhunter, and the other 3 was all networking. My job at First Republic, as an example, I went out to lunch with a buddy of mine who happens to be a competitor at a different bank, but he and I are friends, and we were just talking about work and how things were going, and he said, I got this crazy opportunity at First Republic. I'm not going to take it because it's basically my job at my bank, but it might be something you should look into. And I did, and I was open for a conversation. And before I knew it, I was a direct report of the regional managing director of First Republic, which is the #1 private bank in the country. That wouldn't have happened had we not gone out to lunch, or very, very unlikely. So little stuff like that, you know, what's the analogy? You can't make a shot you don't take. You know, there's going to be a lot of misses, right? That, you know, you're going to go out to lunch and you're just going to have a good time. And, you know, but sometimes things will happen when you create activity.
Right. So I also want to share an experience. So my first job was Deloitte. I was there for 2 years. And one of the seniors who was a year ahead of me, she just got promoted to manager. She got into Goldman, and I kept in touch with her. And then we were just, you know, every now and then we exchange emails or have coffee. And she said, "Oh, they're still hiring. Do you want me to send your resume in?" I said, "Why not? I always wanted to work for Goldman." So she sent my resume in, and I got a call. So this is another example to Larry's point that networking is really important. Use that to practice, and you never know, an opportunity might just come up because of that.
And you'd be surprised what comes out of it. And, you know, the more you do it, the more it grows exponentially, because, you know, if you're just talking to 2 people, then that's not going to do much for you. But you know, like one of the ways that I would get clients when I was at First Republic and when I was at Merrill Lynch is, you know, I had a client at Credit Suisse. And so I was like, "Hey, can I take you and 4 of your buddies out for drinks after work one day?" "Sure, no problem." And you know, maybe I make three new friends, maybe I get a new account, maybe nothing happens. But I certainly wasn't going to get anything by sitting on my couch doing nothing. So you constantly being social is helpful.
Right. So very good. And okay, guys, I hope you will use this first class as a sort of starting point for your interview preparation. And let me talk about a little bit about what we're going to do next week. Next Thursday, we're going to meet again. And we're going to go over some examples of your past projects, example of your skills. And when you go into interviews, after you introduce yourself, very possible your interviewer will say, "Okay, great. How about give me an example of your analytical skills?" Okay? Or give me an example of your past project. What role did you play in that project? What was the goal, and how did you guys end up achieving that goal? And we've heard this interview question from literally almost all types of industries, whether it is financial services or computer science, software development, engineering, in particular, engineering. The couple of engineers we talked to, mechanical, electrical, supply chain, they all ask for project, and specifically school projects, right? Were you trying to build something? What's the project deliverable? What was your role? How did you guys build that in products? So very important. You need to think of a good answer that shows not just the project, but also your own involvement. It's a detailed answer, but also not writing a book, writing a novel, right? So these are important balances to achieve, and we're going to show you some real examples next week. So till then, and we wish you enjoyed today's conversation. And again, you guys know where to find me. And if you want to talk to Larry, let us know, and we will try to book Larry in his busy schedule. So thank you very much, everyone, and thank you, Larry, for today.
Absolutely.
And hopefully we'll see you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to always help.
Great. Thank you, Larry.